Welcome into the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Ballpark Digest's Kevin Reichard. And we are joined by a couple of saintly fellows. It's good to be blessed. Joined by Derek Sharrer, the Executive Vice President and General Manager of the St. Paul Saints, and the voice of the Saints, Sean Aronson. First, before Sean, we welcome you in, Kevin Reichard. Good to be rejoined by you.
Good to see you, Jesse. Good to see these fine gentlemen as well.
Derek, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having us.
Good to have you. Sean, good to see you again.
You too. I've been called a lot of things, and I know I work for the Saints, but saintly has never been one of them. So I appreciate that. That's the first time for me.
Hey, we draw up our own definitions here. For each of you, let's get in before we move into the crux of the matter, which is the St. Paul Saints moving into affiliated baseball. Let's get into each of your histories with the St. Paul Saints. So Derek, take me through your path that led to St. Paul.
Sure. I started in baseball in Fort Myers, Florida in 1994. So we're going to start off by dating ourselves here. I've worked with Mike Veck and Marv Goldklang and Bill Murray as an ownership group since I graduated from school. Basically, I went to Indiana University and took an internship in Fort Myers in 1994. Spent 7 years in Fort Myers, actually, 4 of which I was the general manager. I had an opportunity to take over as general manager in Fort Myers at the end of the 1996 season, probably a year or two earlier than I should have. But I was very fortunate to be given an opportunity and to have a great support staff there to lean on and just had an opportunity to grow early in my career. And at the end of the 2000 season, I was given the opportunity by the ownership group to move to Charleston, South Carolina. I spent 3 seasons there and was in the middle of, and absolutely loved it, by the way. It's a wonderful, wonderful city and beautiful ballpark by the river. And my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed our 3+ years living there. And we were planning for the 2004 season. I think it was February of 2004 that I found out that there was going to be an opportunity to make the move to St. Paul. And in our industry, let alone in our ownership group, if you have an opportunity to take on the general manager role for the St. Paul Saints, it doesn't matter how beautiful the city you live in is or how many years you've lived 5 minutes away from the beach. You pack up and you take the job in St. Paul. And when I was given that opportunity, I jumped at it, had to twist my wife's arm a little bit. But now here we are, 17 and a half, 18 years later, and this is home. And I've just had a wonderful time being here in St. Paul and wonderful opportunities to be a part of a couple of transitions. One, the transition from Midway Stadium to CHS Field in 2015 and the years that led up to that. And then now this transition heading into our AAA affiliation with the Twins, which I failed to mention, and this is Sean's story too, but having worked in Fort Myers as a Twins affiliate, a single A Twins affiliate, and working with the Twins in operating their spring training facility there in Fort Myers, there's a little bit of a full circle story that's taking place here with both of us coming back to partnering with the Twins now.
I want to come back to that in just a second, but first, Sean, what was the path that led you to St. Paul?
Yeah, so I went to school at the University of Colorado. I knew broadcasting was always what I wanted to do. But same with Derek, I'll date myself. When I graduated from high school in '95, there was no Google, there was no internet search to find out the best broadcasting schools out there. They just had piles of books in the offices that you could look at, colleges. So I wound up at Colorado and loved it. I tell people all the time, I'd go back to Boulder tomorrow. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I remember when I graduated and I thought, well, someone will just hand me a broadcasting job now because that's the way it works, right? I'm a graduate and I want to be a broadcaster. And that is not how it works, by the way. And I remember calling around to baseball teams. And I remember calling, I can't even remember the team now, but I know it was in, I think, New York. And I said, look, I'm interested in an internship. And the guy asked me, he said, why would you move all the way across the country just to take an internship in baseball? And I thought, what a ridiculous question. Like this has been my dream since I was like 8 or 9 years old. And so that got me thinking, well, what's in my backyard in Boulder? And Colorado Springs is 90 miles down the road. And I reached out to them and got an internship in their media relations department, not as a broadcaster, but I worked hard. They knew what I wanted to do. And towards the end of the season, Dan Karcher, who had been there forever, I mean, forever, and they opened up the broadcast booth to me for a game against the Iowa Cubs, as a matter of fact. You talk about coming full circle here. So it was the Sky Sox and the Iowa Cubs, and it was the best 3 innings I ever did in my life. Not because I was good, but because they were my first, and I was so excited. From there, I landed my first job in Allentown, Pennsylvania, with the Allentown Ambassadors. So again, I mean, this all is going to come back, because in this league, eventually we'll go to Lehigh Valley. I have not been back to Allentown or the Lehigh Valley since I left there. So eventually we'll go, not this year. And then after 2 years there, I landed in Fort Myers from 03 to 06. And then when my predecessor, Chris Atterbury, got the pre and post position with the Twins, basically, the way I remember it, Derek called me and basically begged me to come to St. Paul. There was some groveling and some crying. And here I am about to enter my 15th year. The crying was on my part, by the way. The groveling was on Derek's. But 15 years later, and to be very, very honest, I never thought I'd be here 15 years. I was in 2 years in Allentown, 4 years in Fort Myers. I thought that this was a nice stopover to whatever was next. And 15 years later, here I am. I joke all the time since this affiliation had happened. People have been asking me from day one, when are the Twins and the Saints going to team up? I get that question all the time. And my answer has always been, I will be long gone by the time that happens. And so I've been joking that Derek now has to fire me because I am still here and the affiliation has happened. He will not fire me because it is in my contract that I cannot be fired. So
two quick additions to Sean's story. Well, what Sean left out was the point at which I slid a napkin across the table and just told him, write whatever number it will take to get you to move here from Fort Myers to Minnesota. So that he left that part out. The second part is, we've done everything we can to change that 15-year history, but he's still here. Lord knows we've tried.
That's true. That's true. But no, but it's been great. I mean, and I've said this, and I will say this with Derek on here. I'm not sure I could go back and work for another GM after working with Derek for 15 years. He makes it extremely easy. The biggest thing that this organization does, and again, I've worked with 3 other organizations, but they don't micromanage around here. Like, Derek has given me the freedom to run the media relations department, the broadcasting side. With trepidation, he's allowed me to take over the Twitter voice. But he doesn't look over your shoulder. He trusts in the people that are hired around here, which Derek will tell you comes from the top. It comes from Mike and Marv. That's the philosophy that they have. But it makes it so easy to work around here. And that is one of the reasons why it's been easy to be here for 15 years. And if you look at our staff in general, and Derek can attest to this, there are a number of people that have been here for a while. I mean, we are a veteran-laden staff around here because it really is. It's easy to work for a guy like Derek.
Derek, how often were you asked, when are you affiliating? When are you partnering up with the Twins?
The same, similar to Sean, quite a bit, particularly as we were going through the process of seeking funding for the ballpark. That was, it was at the top of many legislators' minds was, gosh, we love what you do, but it would be great if you were an affiliate of the Twins. We heard that quite often. As a matter of fact, it was during the process of design and maybe a little bit prior to construction of the ballpark, there was a panel conversation with each of the sports franchises having a local here in the Twin Cities, having an executive on the panel. And it was very public that CHS Field was under construction and would be opening in 2015. People were excited. It was myself, Dave St. Peter, I believe Lester Bagley from the Vikings was on the panel. Chris Wright from the actually it wasn't Chris Wright because I don't think he'd moved over to the United at that point, but it was his predecessor, I think, Nick Rogers. So at any rate, it was the sports panel, and it was a chamber event, and the question was asked of both Dave St. Peter and I, now that the Saints are building a new ballpark and moving into this new facility, is there any chance that they'll affiliate with the Twins? And both of us, deflected the question. First of all, there had been no conversation whatsoever, and we explained how many mountains would need to be moved for that to happen, because that's almost a literal description of what had to happen for us to become an affiliate of the Twins, let alone 5, 6, 7 years ago when that conversation took place. My favorite part of that story, though, is we did have this conversation. We both said, look, it's not happening, at least not anytime soon. There's been zero conversation, and there would be so many steps that would have to take place for it to be possible. The following day's newspaper read headline, Saints and Twins discuss affiliation. At which point, the rest of our partners in the American Association reached out and said, hey, what's going on there? If this is a possibility, we should know about it. And we said, literally, we did discuss affiliation, but what we explained was it's not happening now or anytime soon. Obviously, what's happened here over the last several months is pretty amazing, but that's where it landed in the past.
Well, here we are. You are now AAA Minnesota Twins affiliate. John Aronson, for whatever reason, is still around. How did this start? What was the first time, Derek, that the conversation began, that you first heard that this was a possibility?
Well, like the rest of those in the baseball industry, we read about it in Baseball America, and I'm sure Kevin had it posted as well on Ballpark Digest. But the first we heard of it was when the proposal from Major League Baseball to restructure, to bring minor league baseball under its umbrella and restructure to 120 teams. That's the first we heard about it. As we read the article, it was almost a throwaway paragraph that had 2 or 3 sentences in it suggesting that there would be a couple of independent teams that would be asked to come into the fold, including the St. Paul Saints. So that goes back to when was that, Sean? October, maybe 2019?
Yeah, 2019, yeah.
So at that point, we were planning for our 2020 season. Certainly when that showed up in Baseball America and other various publications, the microphones were put in our face with the cameras and said, hey, what do you think about this? And what's happening? What's going on? And we explained to everybody, we're not involved at this point. I mean, this is a conversation that's taking place at the Major League Baseball level. This is the first we've heard of it. We're flattered. Certainly it's intriguing. Again, mountains would need to be moved to make it a reality. But at this point, we love at this point being the fall of 2019, we love what we do, we love how we do it, and we love with whom we do it. And we explained often that independent baseball it's in our DNA. It's very much who we are. Frankly, that hasn't changed, other than the fact that we are, by definition, an affiliate of the Minnesota Twins. The independent spirit exists and will always exist. But certainly at that point in time, that was how we found out about the possibility. And then over time, conversations began happening at the ownership level. Here in St. Paul, we still didn't get very involved until the summer of 2020, and conversations picked up even more as we began to host the Twins alternate training site. We had an opportunity to begin to get to know some of those coaches and players at that level, and they had an opportunity to get to know this facility, understand just how ready it is for AAA baseball. Get comfortable with our front office staff and how we operate. Somehow we managed to support their alternate training site while still playing 21 home games here as part of the American Association 2021 or 2020 season. So all of these pieces were moving around, these puzzle pieces that seemed impossible to make fit. we're all shuffling all over the place for any number of reasons. The upheaval between minor league baseball and Major League Baseball, the pandemic, all of the various trickle downs from the pandemic through Major League Baseball playing a truncated season, through us playing a truncated independent season. So these pieces were just shuffling around, and then eventually they came together.
Kevin Reichard, what happened was over the course of the last few months and years, you and I would talk about how you were hearing things. You were more closer to the inside than any of the teams involved were.
I had a lot of owners willing to chat with me and well, put it more accurately, to vent at me about the process. It was less trying to keep me informed than just having someone to bitch at, because the discussions between minor league baseball and Major League Baseball were very contentious at times. Minor league owners didn't feel like they were getting a fair shot. Your owner actually was one of the voices of reason in the whole process, which ended up good for you and him in the long run. But there were a lot of moving pieces. I mean, the Saints weren't always guaranteed. There were some valuation issues. Somerset actually wasn't part of it originally, and then they wooed the Yankees. And then Sugarland coming, those are the three teams, right? The Sugarland, Somerset, and St. Paul. Sugarland came in early and then late, and it was all sort of, that was the cloudiest part of it all, and it had more to do with cross Astros ownership things rather than how great Constellation Field is, because out of the three ballparks, CHS Field is by far the nicest. And I wrote that when I first visited. This is a AAA ballpark.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kevin.
Yeah, I want you each to flex, because you talked about the mountains that you moved. What mountains did you move?
Well, and the person who deserves the most credit in our organization for this transition taking place is Marv Goldklang. Certainly on the Twins side, Jim Pohlad and Dave St. Peter. I mean, those three working together are the ones who truly move the mountains. And to Kevin's point about Marv through this transition with minor league baseball and Major League Baseball, I guess I want to be clear and emphasize that Marv Goldklang, Jeff Goldklang, Mike Goldklang, Mike Veck, the Goldklang group as a whole, always believed that more baseball is better baseball, and never supported losing teams in the minor league baseball world. It never truly supported the moving to 120 and having 42 or now 43 teams go away. Certainly, as the picture cleared up and we saw where those teams had an opportunity to land, the story is still to be told whether they're better off or worse off, those markets. But I want to be clear that Marv, as much as this situation, St. Paul and Minnesota checked so many boxes and made so much sense, and ends up being a net positive for both the Twins and the Saints. Marv, from day one, pushed to maintain those 160 minor league markets to be part of that minor league baseball system. So, but yeah, there were, again, mountains to be moved, puzzle pieces to make fit, and Marv, Jim, Pohlad, and Dave St. Peter certainly had the vision and the wherewithal and the stick-to-itiveness is probably the best way to describe it to make it happen.
Well, and Derek and Kevin can agree or disagree with this. This probably does not happen if all the dominoes don't fall independent of the St. Paul Saints, right? Like we didn't search for this. Major League Baseball wanted this overhaul. They wanted this change. And then on top of that, you had the pandemic. You have to go back and remember, this was a PR nightmare for Major League Baseball before the pandemic. I mean, you had, and we get no bipartisan support for anything these days, but you had bipartisan support for this not to happen, right? You had representatives from different states saying, there's no way we're losing our teams. This is not going to happen. And so when you talk about the perfect storm, this was it. Because if Major League Baseball doesn't want to change, if there is no pandemic, I honestly believe the Saints are still a part of the American Association, and we would have been just very, very happy with that. But with everything happening the way it did, this seemed like the right time to make this move.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that the one thing I'd add, Jesse, is the mountains to be moved. If when that question was asked of me 6-7 years ago on that panel, and of Dave St. Peter, when that question was asked, the mountains to be moved are, how does an affiliation become available, right? Like there were 160 teams and they were all lined up, and AAA had 30 teams, AA had the number of teams it had, single A. We likely would have never been interested in a single A affiliation, just because we felt like the product we put on the field was higher than that level of baseball anyway. So a single A affiliation, again, I'm stepping back 6 or 7 years in this conversation. Single A affiliation wouldn't have been all that interesting to us, and that was really the only likely affiliation that would be possible based on the league geography. The Midwest League, the geography wouldn't be great for the Midwest League here in Minnesota, but that's the closest we would have found. There were no AA leagues that really made sense geographically, and the AAA teams were pretty well locked in. And then there was the thought of, do the Twins, again 6 or 7 years ago, would the Twins want an affiliate geographically that close? I mean, obviously now we all know that that's an initiative and an effort made at the Major League Baseball level by Major League Baseball owners and operators and player development folks. They do want geographic efficiency with their affiliates. At the time, though, that wasn't necessarily a focus. So those were the types of mountains: is how does an affiliation become available? Do the Saints need to sell their independent franchise and then purchase an existing affiliated franchise? So there were so many different puzzle pieces that just had to fall into place. To Sean's point, the overhaul by Major League Baseball with minor league baseball and all of the factors that led to that, pandemic included, that sort of wiped the slate clean for those mountains that had to be moved, and created an opening for it to become possible. And to be clear, as I said, we were very happy doing what we did, how we did it, with whom we did it. But for the perfect opportunity with the perfect partner, the best way I've been able to describe it over the past several months is a unique, exciting opportunity. This is the opportunity that we have to partner with the Twins, two teams that have operated, two franchises that have operated separately, successfully in the same market within 10, 12 miles of each other. Now, and at some points, I think Kevin can attest to this, at some points, it hasn't always been buddy-buddy. I mean, I'd say over the last several years, at least, and I'm not claiming any credit for this, but at least since I've been here, I think the relationship has been, for the most part, positive. I give a lot of the credit to Dave St. Peter. I think his belief has always been that, similar to what I said about our ownership group, more baseball is better baseball. I think his approach is that the Saints were creating baseball fans. We're helping to build the love of the game, that those baseball fans would become Major League Baseball fans. The early years, 93 through the early to mid 90s, late 90s, I think there was maybe a different environment. So, and that may be underselling how it was. So to have those two organizations that at some point probably competed and maybe even bumped heads a little bit, but operated successfully in the same market for so many years, to now come together and to be able to work hand in hand as partners, that's we weren't looking for a move, but that's the type of partnership that made it a no-brainer for us.
Well, you look back at the history, and there's Andy McPhail's famous quote about the Northern League being, Mike Beck's beer league, and totally slamming the whole concept at a time when I think Andy felt pretty strong. The Twins, had been winning, and he was the boy wonder back then. And Mike came in kind of brash, we're going to set up shop and we're going to see what happens. And yeah, there was no love loss. I think the Twins were genuinely threatened. I mean, they were in the Dome at the time. You were playing outdoor ball, albeit at Midway, which is, what was not exactly a shrine to baseball. But there were bad feelings, and I think this is paralleling with what happened in the whole Minneapolis sports industry, to get a little narrow focused. I mean, 20 years ago, you would never have seen the Twins congratulate the Vikings on something. You would never seen the Vikings congratulate the Wild on anything. And now it seems and especially led by the Twins, there's more of a sense of camaraderie that the sports industry needs to hold together. And sure, there's some cross ownership stuff when you look at MLS and MLB, but overall, that tone's a lot different.
No question. And I think that started a few years ago. That's not something brand new, but there's no question that what we've all gone through over the last 12, 13, 14 months, speaking specifically about the sports industry and the impact the pandemic has had on professional sports, it's been incredible to see the way each of the franchises came together and collaborated to figure out a way to work and put a product on the field and do it safely and entertain fans. And where we are now versus where we were in March of 2020 is pretty incredible. And it was enjoyable is not the right word, but it was heartwarming maybe to see, is maybe a better description, to see how the teams came together. Weekly calls between team executives, weekly calls between team various departmental staffs, sharing best practices. And it was, us, the Saints, having an opportunity to maybe jump ahead and get players on the field and fans in the stands before some of the other teams. We certainly appreciated the opportunity to be the crash test dummies on that process. And certainly we heard from all the teams and had an opportunity to collaborate with all the teams. But you're right, Kevin, that environment, it's pretty special.
Well, you talk about congratulating teams. Sorry, Jesse. I mean, real quick, when we won the championship in 2019 and the Twins invited us to their ballpark and then had George throw out the first pitch, and then a couple of days later, the Wild, had us at the arena, and George and a couple of players went with the trophy. I mean, I'm not sure that happens, 10 years ago or whatever. I mean, it's incredible. I think I looked at Derek on that day and I was like, it's never going to get better than this. I mean, it really was. It was just incredible to see how they opened up their arms, for us. And I mean, a lot of credit, because there's this hashtag that goes around right now, this One Minnesota hashtag for all the sports teams. And it really has been. And I think it might've been 2019, could have been 2018. They all blend together. But the Twins, the Saints, and the United all had a game on the same day, and everybody basically sold out. I think we drew 10,000 that day, or 9,000, but everybody sold out. So there's enough to go around in this market. And I think that was the worry for a long time, that there wasn't. I've said this since I moved here. I know on the sports side, Minnesota treats itself as this mid-market sort of, area, but they've got the four major sports. They've got a WNBA, a team, they've got a soccer team, they've got a major university. Now they've got a AAA baseball team. I mean, if you want to talk about the sports hub of the country, you're hard pressed to find anything better than the Twin Cities has right now. And I think the mentality of this sort of mid-market to somewhere between mid and small market area out here just has to go away. It's just so much. It's the 16th largest media market out there. So, I don't know if that's just quote unquote the nature of Minnesotans. I learn more and more every year about them. Yeah, exactly. But seriously, if you took a step back and compared them to LA and New York and Chicago, they go toe to toe, in terms of the sports teams that they have.
Well, let alone the facilities, right?
Yeah,
the
for
facilities
sure.
too. You have the teams, but the facilities these teams play in are incredible. Sorry, Jesse.
No, I want to circle back around to both of you coming from Fort Myers. I mean, some might consider it a miracle for the Twins and the Saints to get together. For each of you, when you worked in Fort Myers, how many people did you meet with the Twins who were still there? How nice is this that once again you get to work together?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one, Sean, only because of the time on the calendar, right? The window of time. So I started there in 1994, and that was toward the end of Andy MacPhail's time in Minnesota. But Jerry Bell, Andy MacPhail were still the president, general manager combination. But we worked primarily with their baseball side. The arrangement in Fort Myers is different than most of the other Florida State League markets, because the Twins haven't owned and didn't own their minor league affiliate. So we had two agreements with the Twins. We had a player development contract, and then we also had a spring training agreement, which was the business partnership that allowed us to sell sponsorships, sell outfield signs. We also operated concessions for the facility there, Hammond Stadium, and we managed the parking and the usher staff, things along those lines for spring training. The Twins primarily came in and focused on selling tickets, and then they worried about what was happening on the field. So that was the nature of the relationship. So we really had an opportunity to develop a relationship with the baseball side. Primary contact was for many years was Bill Smith, who eventually became the general manager with the Twins. But Billy was amazing to work with, and he's a guy that I consider a mentor. I've been very fortunate to work with, to have mentors like Mike Veck and Marv Goldklang, and I include Billy as a mentor in that crowd as well. One of my first experiences with Bill Smith was at the end of spring training. This is when I was an intern, and I'd been in town for maybe 6 or 7 weeks at this point in time, and the Twins are packing up to leave town. The truck actually has already left for Minnesota, and I walked down with another intern to the clubhouse, because we're now going to move into the home clubhouse. The minor league team is going to move into the home clubhouse. They're also going to move their offices from a satellite building into the Hammond Stadium offices. And as I walked down there, I walked into the clubhouse, and there's Billy vacuuming, picking up trash, sweating profusely, just working his tail off. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the assistant general manager of the Minnesota Twins. And I was blown away, and had an opportunity, obviously, over the years to get to know Billy and to understand his background in minor league baseball, coming from the Appleton Foxes, and then landing with the Twins later on in his career. But Billy Smith, Terry Ryan, who took over for Andy MacPhail as general manager, Rob Anthony, several folks on the business side, worked quite a bit with Matt Hoy, who would come down and sort of oversee the building operations, just keep an eye on the building operations. And over time, several folks from Laura Dave from the marketing side and the business side of the Twins operation. She would come down with sponsors on sponsor trips. And so it's interesting, over the years, they're still similar to the Saints, that the Twins have folks who have worked in their organization for years and years and years. And it's very much a family. It has a family feel to it. Their front office staff. Now they're obviously their baseball operations have transitioned over the past several years with Derek Falvey and Thad Levine and the staff that they brought on board. But yeah, no question, Jesse. There is a full circle feel to it. Dave St. Peter began taking a significant leadership role with the Twins organization toward the end of my time in Fort Myers. But I did have an opportunity while I was general manager in Fort Myers to work with and spend some time with Dave and get to know him a little bit before I moved on to Charleston.
Yeah, for me, first, Jesse, if you think that anyone allows me next to anyone important, you have another thing coming. Nobody allows me to rub elbows with anybody that has any sort of title. It doesn't work that way.
Social distancing before social
for sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Professional distancing.
That's right. No, you know what? I first of all, I'll echo the story about Billy Smith, because one of my first impressions of him was very, very similar, of him in the lunch area picking up chairs and stacking chairs after a spring training game. And I believe he was in there with like a player. I think he grabbed like a non-roster guy or a guy from the minor league side to help him like stack chairs. As a sign of things to come, I peeked my head in and saw what he was doing. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And he basically said, "Look, I'm cleaning up, and I got my start in minor league baseball. I never forget where I came from." And I said, "Man, I'm impressed. You're the assistant general manager of the Twins, and you're doing this." And I said, "Have a nice day." And I walked out, didn't bother to help. So that was a foreshadowing of things to come, because I continue to play that role many years later. But as long as you're there and people see you, they think you've helped out, and that's all you got to do. But Terry Ryan and Billy Smith were my two favorite guys when they were there, because I'd have them on the broadcast every time they came into town, and they were polar opposites on the broadcast. Terry Ryan would tell you anything. Like if you asked him a question, he was open and honest about everything. Billy Smith kept everything close to the vest. Billy Smith came during trade deadline time a couple of times, and I get it. Like you don't want to, divulge the inner workings, but like he wouldn't answer a question. Like it was impressive to watch Billy Smith just dance around questions. But they were two amazing guys, just really nice guys. Sean Harlan, who was the media guy when I was there, is now basically running their video department. And Mike Herman was their media relations guy, who I believe is still there doing something for them. But I think I saw Dave St. Peter a number of times, but again, I can't run in those circles. Now I can. I've had the chance to interview him, but back then, no chance. But look, it's funny because I say, look, I've been here 15 years, and I look at a number of Twins guys, and the Twins have a number of guys that have been around for a while, right? They have a number of people, and I'm like, man, you've been around forever. And I'm wondering how many people look at like myself and Derek and are like, man, you guys have been around forever, right? It's just, that's just the way it is. And when you're a lifer in baseball, this is the life you lead.
Sean, you mentioned Sean Harlan. My first, I'll call this my first job in baseball, was obviously in Fort Myers, but the first role I played for a baseball game was they sat me down next to Bob Casey in the PA booth.
Yes.
Rob Anthony and Sean Harlan showed me how to use the sound system, and that was my job. I was running scoreboard and spinning tunes between innings for Twins spring training games. When I wasn't doing that, I was selling ticket coupon books for the Fort Myers Miracle. So that was the humble beginnings.
That's funny that you say that, Derek, because I did the PA for spring training for those 4 years. There was actually a year where we were allowed to do some radio games. I think we're the only non-major league affiliated station to be able to do radio. I think it was 2006, 2007, one of my last years there. But sitting in there before Bob Casey had passed away, the stories that guy would tell were unbelievable. Like a lot of stories that I could never repeat, but the guy was hilarious. He was unreal to sit next to, and you wouldn't even have to ask him. He'd just start going off, and like you're just laughing to the point where you're crying, and then you've got to turn the microphone on and say now batting whatever, and it was so hard to do. He was a gem. Bob Casey was unbelievable.
He didn't mind, and Kevin, to your point about the early 90s, he also didn't mind sharing his opinion about the Saints. He at one point, I think he said that Mike Veck's dad would be rolling over in his grave if he knew what he was doing there in St. Paul. And this was like 1994. The Saints opened up in 1993. I started working for the organization in 1994. And so we were just a year into this thing. The Saints had their first year, had been, to many surprisingly successful. And I think everybody was just trying to figure out the lay of the land, where the Saints were going to fit into the Twin Cities sports map. But yeah, it was that was Bob was an interesting dude.
I'll tell you one more that has influenced me to this day. We have a 90-degree rule here, where if it's 90 degrees or hotter, you can wear shorts, right? I mean, that's the rule. And I look, I've been to a bunch of ballparks, and some places are more lax than others. I have never, ever wore shorts, and it's because of John Gordon. When I was in Fort Myers, I had worn, you could wear shorts during spring training. I mean, it's gorgeous, whatever. And most of the people would work out in the ballpark, and I would start there selling programs, and then I'd go up to the press box. And one day, John Gordon saw me, and he's like, "Shawnee, what are you doing?" And I was like, I'm going to the PA booth. He said, "Why are you wearing shorts?" And I was like, "Well, it's Florida. I mean, it's hot." He's like, "We don't wear shorts up here." And I was like, "All right." From that day on, I've never worn a pair of shorts during a game or any time press. I don't care how hot it is. That has always stuck with me. And I've never ever, I come dressed. I don't, obviously I don't dress in like suit and tie or anything, but always khakis and my polo shirt. And it's always because I remember what John Gordon said to me in the press box that one day.
Let's talk about present and future.
Okay.
The Saints going from independent baseball to affiliated AAA team. For each of you, what stays the same with the Saints and what changes?
Derek, go for it.
Sure. A lot stays the same, and then a significant part of what we do changes. Is the sort of broad view, but the experience stays the same, and we can't emphasize that enough. And that was, as these conversations began, that was at the forefront of the discussion about making this transition or not making this transition. It was important to us that we be able to do what the Saints have done for 27, 28 years. From a fun is good perspective, from a fan experience perspective, from an affordability perspective, all of those things, who the Saints are, what we represent. I've quoted Dave on this several times, but Dave St. Peter used a term in a conversation that he and I had. He said, "Hey, look, we don't want to see the Saints lose their special sauce," and that's firmly implanted in my head now. That I guess I never thought of it as a special sauce, but since he said that, I've quoted him on that several times, and that was one of the first conversations that took place at that ownership level that eased our minds as to how this process was going to take place, and whether or not we wanted to make the move. It was as important to the Twins that the Saints remain who they are, and it was certainly there are geographic advantages to the affiliation from a player development standpoint. I think they haven't hid the fact that they feel like this is a competitive advantage for them, the Twins, the Twins baseball side. So there's the geographic advantage. The facility speaks for itself and what that can deliver from a health and wellness perspective. But the Twins said from day one that those things are really important to them, but just as important is being a part of the Saints and who the Saints are. That they wanted to be, they didn't want to come into a relationship that changed who the Saints are and what they represent. So those things don't change. Affordability, fun, creativity, fan experience, all of that. The Saints experience stays the same. What changes is between the white lines. We're very proud of the product we've put on the field for the last 28 years, dating back to the early 90s with Leon Durham and Kevin Millar and Darryl Strawberry, J.D. Drew, those players that came through. Ray Ordonez, the museum down the left field line displays all of that history. We're very proud of that. And over the last 20 or so years, the players that we've brought through as independent baseball became more of a staple in the industry and became more of a player development tool for Major League Baseball. We're proud of the players that have come through that. Caleb Thielbar, who's now pitching with the Twins. So many other players that have come through and been signed by major league organizations. Sean can do a better job of reeling those off than I can. So we're very proud of that. But you can't argue that the product on the field between those white lines as a AAA affiliate, you can't argue that it's going to be next level by comparison to what we've seen in the past. The top prospects in the Twins organization, let alone the top prospects coming through in every other major league organization as they visit St. Paul. And then the geographic proximity adds another dynamic to it, which is the sort of the green line light rail back and forth between Target Field and CHS Field. The opportunity that the Twins will now have to send a player down for a quick rehab stint, or to call a player up on a short-term basis because they have a need. Just that 10.5-mile drive. I've joked, and I feel guilty whenever I say this because I don't want to wish any ill will against any major league player, but a family of four might come out and buy 4 tickets to sit on the berm here, the Treasure Island berm in left field, pay $20 and see Nelson Cruz, who's on a quick rehab stint, hit a home run right to him. This is just that's what I mean when I say this is a unique and exciting experience. That the geographic proximity just doesn't exist anywhere else in the industry, and it's going to create a really special dynamic between the AAA affiliate and the major league team.
Yeah, I'll give you the change on my side. There's two. Number one, Derek now makes us bow to him as a AAA general manager, which that was not the case before. So we're trying to rein him in a little bit. But honestly, like all of a sudden, I wake up and I'm a AAA broadcaster, which some people say, oh, is that a difference? Is that a big deal? You're going to get more eyes and ears on you. And I know Derek has worked very hard on this side to broaden our scope. On the TV side, all of our games are televised, but most of them on cable access. But we're working very hard to get more games on various channels out here. And I've also found our radio station, which has been great. It's an iHeart station out here, are willing to put us on their big station, which again never would have happened. So for me, more eyes and ears, and it's very funny. And Jesse can attest to this. I think as broadcasters, I don't care who you are, you have some sort of ego, big, small, somewhere in between, whatever. But there's also an insecurity about broadcasters. And there is a part of me that has a little bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't get hired to be a AAA broadcaster, right? And so the big worry is you start getting these guys that were hired at the AAA level looking at me and basically saying, you only got this job because you guys happened to move up from independent ball to AAA. And maybe that's, again, my own insecurities. And again, you talk to broadcasters and lay them down on a couch and they'll tell you all this stuff. This is true. And so there is a part of me that has that. I've probably worked harder this off season than I ever have before trying to prepare for this season, because I do feel like I have something to prove again. And I haven't necessarily felt that in the last 15 years. And so that is, that's going to be the interesting thing. You're the new guy in this league now, where before I was the seasoned veteran in the American Association. And so it's going to be different on that front, but it's exciting. It's a little nerve wracking, but it is exciting as well.
Nor have you worked that hard for the last 15 years.
True. But it's all relative, right? I didn't say I was working hard, just harder. So, you take it from a 1 to like a 2.5.
So I have one quick question, and I bet Jesse wants to get to the term of the day. But my quick question, which I'm sure you can answer very quickly, is when are you going to have your first Twin Saints trolley doubleheader like the Millers and the Saints used to have?
Oh man, that's exciting. I mean, it's I have to take a look at the schedule to see where it matches up. I know we to Sean's point about the television broadcast, we are taking a look at days where we don't coincide time wise that might allow for some broadcast opportunities. But yeah, there are several things on tap that the Saints and Twins are looking very forward to working together on. Those types of promotions are no-brainers. Ticket packages that involve a day game, night game scenario, jump on the green line and head to Target Field, or vice versa from Target Field to CHS Field. One of the more significant areas that we're very excited to work together is in growing the game of baseball at a youth level. We have an opportunity with the grassroots programs that the Saints have in place, the foundation work that the Twins have done, and the programs that they have in place. We have a wonderful opportunity to work together now. We've never worked against each other on this front, and in some cases we've partnered, but we've never worked hand in hand the way we have an opportunity to now, to really develop, to take that more baseball is better baseball philosophy and develop baseball fans at the grassroots level to where they're attending Saints games, they're attending Twins games, but growing the love of the game. So we're very excited to work together on so many different platforms like that.
Let's get into the flow of this. Each time on the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat, we'll pull out baseball slang, some baseball lingo that we conclude with. And today, instead of banging the drum softly, what we're going to do is talk about the term bang. When you have a game that, let's say, gets rained out, that game is banged. And the reason why we use this term is because, Derek, you revile it.
You're absolutely, there's nothing worse. I mean, as a general manager at any level of baseball, major league, minor league, collegiate, wood bat, in a leadership level, at any level of baseball, you hate to lose a game to weather or any other factor. So nothing worse than to hear somebody say, "Are you banging the game? Is this, when are we going to bang it?" And to the extent that I have a rule that developed, I think, early in my time in Fort Myers as general manager, as you're walking through the tunnels underneath the stadium, players, I understand, players are playing every day. If they get an opportunity to take a night off, umpires, same way on occasion, they'll never admit it, but they look forward to the night off as well. You're walking down the tunnel and a player says to you, "Hey, when are we banging this thing?" You ignore that one, walk by another player. "Hey, when are we going to bang it? We getting out of here?" So the rule I established early on in my career as general manager was and now I just tell the players this when they ask me. Every time a player asks me, "Are we banging it?" we add 10 minutes to the point in time when we actually do bang it. So I'll just say 10 minutes, but 10 minutes.
I get asked all the time, "What's the weather report? What's the radar look like?" I get asked that by the manager, who I see he has his phone in front of him with the radar on it. And he still is asking me, "Hey, what do you see when you look at the radar?" So have any of the three of you seen the rain turtle?
Not the rain turtle. No, I have not.
So this was something I was introduced to in the Southern League, is that when players really want to rain out, they draw a turtle in the dirt in front of the dugout. And then everybody spits on the turtle to try to bring rain.
God, isn't baseball a beautiful game?
That's so Southern League.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. No, we take a great deal of pride, and this is, we've got to establish this reputation all over again. But in the American Association, and prior to that in the Northern League, we took a great deal of pride in the fact that when a visiting team new player would be in town and there would be some rain, nothing better than when their teammates would say, "Don't get excited. They don't cancel games in St. Paul." So we've got to reestablish that reputation now in the AAA East League Midwest Division.
That's right.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Just stay with the St. Paul Saints, AAA. Derek Sharrer, Executive Vice President and General Manager. Sean Aronson, the Vice President, Director of Broadcasting and Media Relations. We now know that this was all a plot for the St. Paul Saints to go to AAA just to light a fire beneath Sean to finally get him working hard again.
Do what it takes.
Again, relative term, working hard for me. So
thank you both very much. Really,
thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Kevin Reichard, any final thoughts?
No, we covered a lot of ground. This was a great chat, and thanks to both of you. I'll see you at the ballpark sometime this summer.
Looking forward
to it. For Derek, for Sean, for Kevin, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this has been your Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat.